Everybody knows the media is bad for society. We hear it all the time. But does that mean it's true? Let's find out. One of the first studies done to assess the effect of media was in the Pay and Fun studies. It researched the effect of movies on children and adolescents in 1928, as concerned parents realised that their children were mimicking what they saw in the movies. Contemporary scholars often look back on this era and see a general theoretical view, now known as the magic bullet model. According to this view, the communication of a mass media message can be compared to shooting a gun with a magic bullet, which exerts relatively similar and powerful messages to everyone who views it. A recent example of this is the release of the 50 Shades of Grey movie, prompting similar circumstances but with contemporary media. That is, applying the magic bullet model, anyone who watches 50 Shades would think that domestic violence is somehow more acceptable. Lowery and DeFleur noted that the conclusions of the Pay and Fun studies helped to establish a legacy of fear, widespread belief that the media was bad and that media messages might pervert and upset proper social order. I'm going to answer this question through the prism of social media, focusing on its effect on young people. As Dr. Stephen Harrington pointed out in Lecture 3, some of the key features of media moral panic are almost always about young people. Over the past decade, social media has evolved from being an esoteric jumble of technologies to a set number of sites and services that are at the heart of contemporary culture, particularly for young people. But before we look at youth, let's focus on social media itself. Technology is the very reason for social media's existence, which affords it many different characteristics to traditional physical social spaces. Four aspects in particular afford social media the mediated environments that it creates. Persistence. The fact that it's hard to get rid of something once it's in the online environment, such as a Facebook status, an Insta pic, or a Snapchat you wouldn't want your grandma to see. Visibility. The potential audience who can bear witness to your content, that is, if your Facebook or Instagram is public. Spreadability. The ease with which your content can be shared. And searchability. The ease with which finding your content can be by a simple Google search of your name. Now let's look at the perceived fear of these characteristics. With the Week 5 lecture, Dr. Stephen Harrington grouped these fears into three categories: physical effects, social effects, and physical dangers. Now, these categories help us understand the process. Physical dangers can include online predators, who may be a risk to young people and use the searchability of social media to connect with them. Young people may overshare personal information, which leads to breaches of privacy. Trolling can also cause physical danger, such as youth self-harming if they're being trolled for their physical appearance or discursive background. The persistence and searchability of content means that trolls can access media 24/7, meaning it can be difficult to avoid this trolling without withdrawing completely from the online environment. Other physical dangers, such as balcony hopping and planking, are caused by the spreadability of content, the fact that people want to contribute to the trend that goes from one person to the next caused by this spreadability. Physical effects include a supposedly narcissistic generation of youth caused by social media. Now, I have to admit to having taken a few selfies of my own, but former Secretary of State Colin Powell took a selfie in the 1950s, so they're not exactly new. However, the persistence of online media can mean that youth become addicted to its viewing.
The online environment can be very active. You can have Twitter opening whilst you're listening to YouTube as you scroll through Tumblr only to receive a notification on Facebook. The rate of these tasks means that it can be difficult to focus on one thing at a time. So if you remove someone from the online world, their attention spans may lessen as there's less stimulus to respond to. This leads on to social effects, which can be disconnect from family, replacing offline interactions with online ones, and harming our interpersonal skills. But these doom and gloom theories don't consider the whole picture. They don't consider us, they just consider the technology. In Week 5, Dr. Stephen Harrington pointed to the car crash analogy, whereby when we hear a story on the news about a car crash, we don't blame the car, we blame the driver. On the other hand, when we hear of a predator attack or a suicide to do with social media, we blame social media and not the person behind the wrongful act. Canadian maverick thinker Marshall McLuhan posed the idea of media as extensions of man. That is to say, the media only reflects ourselves. This theory neutralises technology and puts us at the forefront where we should rightly be. Many of the much hyped concerns I've discussed because of technology are not new, for example, bullying or self-harm, but rather may be misleading or offer distractions from the real risk here, such as predators. The predators were around before social media. The narcissistic attention seeker was around before social media. The media is not bad for society, it's how we use it that determines its effect. So, we should stop using the media as a scapegoat and focus on ourselves and how we're going to use this technology for the better.